Welcome to What's Your Story, where we interview ordinary people with super ordinary testimonies of God's great faithfulness. My name is Kenlis Go, and here is Tina Brown, and we'll be interviewing this beautiful lady. She's going to share her testimony. But before we get there, I just want to say that the first time I met Tina was at a healing group, and we were having Bible study. And she was sharing of how the Lord revived such a dead dream. And it really touched me, and the Lord spoke to me, and He told me that I must interview her just to share her testimony for another person to have hope. And so right now, we're going to listen to Tina's testimony and see how God has just worked through her life and through the problems and the difficulties she's had, and just regaining her trust in the Lord again and coming back to the Lord. So Tina, tell us about life before you encounter Christ. BC, life before Christ. Take us back to that background of who you were and what was life back then.
Yeah, well, for me, it was basically, I wasn't raised in a Christian home. It was, we were actually, my parents were quite anti-Christian. So, and I always knew, because I'd meet people, kids my age, that say once or twice I got invited out to a church. My parents okay, you can go, or something like that. So, those couple little times I was in church, I heard about God, or I heard about Jesus. But I never had the understanding. Then I never went back. Maybe once or twice I went. So when things got difficult, because I went through quite a hard childhood, lots of abuse and stuff, not from my parents, but there was just abuse and stuff that had happened. And I always knew there was a God, but I didn't know who He was. I didn't know how to get in touch with Him.
You had no connection.
Yeah, no connection. So I always tell people, if you work in children's ministry, if someone brings a new child, pour into that child. You've got no idea what that child's going home to. It doesn't matter what the child looks like. You have no idea. Just get them to love in the name of Christ into their minds and their hearts, so they can have something to hang on to, right? So I kind of went along in life and never really thought much about God, except for deep, difficult times. I can remember saying, "Are you real, God?" And I didn't really hear anything, but you get this little calmness type of thing, right? But then my family was very much into New Age.
Okay.
So then we would, it was all New Age and psychics and ESP and all that kind of stuff was always talked about. So my parents they would take classes for it. So they wanted me to go, but I guess I wasn't old enough to start going to these classes, to start taking courses to become a psychic and all stuff. So they used to bring home the tests and stuff for me to take, and I would take the tests, and they were very excited because, it's like the dark side, right? You start tampering with the dark side, they're going to give you the abilities to do certain things. And I would start doing certain things with the tests, and my parents were very excited. So then here I was getting all this attention from all my family and everybody. I'm like, yes, this is where I want to go. Yeah. So I want to, exactly. You got a child that's kind of, because I was the third child. I was the little baby, right? So you always saw my older, so I saw my brothers, kind of selling and doing things with my dad and doing cars and stuff. And then all of a sudden now here I am, like, ooh, everyone's noticing me now, right? So I was like, yeah, let's do this.
And that's when you became interested in divination.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And learning how to astral project your body and stuff. I can remember when I was 10, 12 years old, trying to figure out how to astral project. I was trying to. I don't think I actually did it. I don't know. I don't remember a lot of stuff from.
So how long did you practice this?
I didn't really practice it seriously. When I started getting a little bit older, then I started wanting to do it. But it's like anything that the enemy has. It's like he entices you. It's like you get people that will maybe they'll look at a couple porn magazines when they're little, right? And it's like there's this hunger, it draws you in. So it just keeps drawing you in, right? And then so I kept getting interested in all the the ESP and the astral projection and all this type of stuff. And then it was like different people would come into my life, and there'd be different trauma things would happen to me when I was younger. Then it started turning darker. And then it wasn't so much I wanted this light, beautiful peace thing, it was like I wanted to get people back. So then I started to turn dark, and that's when I started as a teenager.
Turn dark? Like, explain to
Yeah,
us.
well, as a teenager, I started wanting to understand more of the satanic, because I saw people were scared of the satanic. People were fearful of the satanic. Yeah. So it was almost like I felt like I would be protected.
Mm-hmm.
I would be safe, and that's kind of how I saw it. Like I would be protected and safe if I got involved with the satanic, rather than just ESP, because I always saw ESP and astral projection as trying to help people. But then I started almost like I want to be protected. I want to be safe.
When were you introduced to the satanic code?
Well, it was more me diving into it and trying to find it. I'm really glad there was no Google back then. I would have found it way too easy.
Really
yeah, I would have found it really way too easy, right? But so and you know what? I mean, the enemy's true to his word. If you seek him, he'll definitely give you it, right? And I started diving into it, and then what ended up happening was, right when I was really considering wanting to go into the occult, because I never actually went into it, but I was trying to find how to get involved with it. And so right before that, a satanic priest and his warlocks and his witches, he actually ended up coming to our school. He shouldn't have been allowed into the school. He was too old, but he ended up getting into the school, and he started bringing all his people, right? So, and there was one warlock I really liked. I kind of saw him. I was like, hey, you know, but then God, you know, God comes in. So, and then here I was. I remember this weekend with my best friend Pam. Me and her were still best friends now. But anyways, my best friend Pam. So we ended up doing the Ouija board, because I was like, I want to meet the man of my dreams. So the Ouija board was telling me on a certain day, go to a certain mall, and I'll meet the man of my dreams. And so we're like, okay, this is cool. So then we got all gussied up, you know, as teenagers. Yeah. I guess not gussied up. That's not. Anyways, so we got all ready, and then we were going to the mall, and just everything that day that could go wrong went wrong. There was traffic, like nothing was working, so we couldn't actually get to the mall that the Ouija board told me to go to meet the man of my dreams and all stuff. And then so me and my friend Pam were talking, and we're like, well, we'll just go to this mall here. It's like half a block from where we were sitting waiting for the light, and we're like, we'll just go here. Then tonight we'll go back on the Ouija board, we'll find out where the man of my dreams is, and then we'll go to wherever he is. So she's like, okay. So I go there, and then I met my husband and his mom, and then shortly after, I say probably a couple months after, they brought me to church, and I came to know Christ, and life's just been revealed, right?
You know, I've heard your testimony, and you said by the time you got married, I guess you figured life was kind of balancing out for you. So tell us about that. I guess you figured things were now getting put in place. Your husband was, I guess he was now moving into ministry. This white picket fence that you thought you guys were gonna have.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was quite a bit into the marriage. We had already had. I mean, like any couple, you go through struggles, right? Mm-hmm. There's things that you have to overcome and stuff. And we ended up we were at different ministries. So we're at this one ministry, and God was really using him in certain areas in the ministry and stuff like that. And we just ended up buying a house. You know, we bought a townhouse, and then he was going into ministry, and I have my 3 kids. I always wanted 3 little girls. Well, not girls, but I always wanted 3 kids at least, right? And I thought, this is it. This is it. God's doing it. God's doing it.
Finally.
Like everything God promised is coming through.
So when did it started taking a turn for the worse?
Well, basically what happened was while we were in ministry, my ex-husband decided a girl at work was who he wanted to be with. And then the marriage fell apart. And then so we tried doing reconciliation, but it just wasn't happening for other reasons and different things that went on. And then the church I was going to, the pastor that had started the church, they're down from the States. So then, because me and my ex-husband, we were supposed to take over the church. Mm-hmm. Well, now there's nobody there to take over the church, so they just packed up and they moved. So now I lost my husband. I was reeling from that, like that feeling of being thrown away, like discarded and thrown away. Like, it's just like, God, I was getting everything. Like, I was getting, we were having the house, we were getting the ministry, everything was coming to play, and all of a sudden, just boom, and one swipe, it was just, it's just like, all taken away, right? And then when the ministry moved away, then I had no church. All our friends, it was almost like nobody knew what to say, because all my friends at this point, they were basically all church friends. So years and years later, I can remember seeing them, and they're like, I'm so sorry, I never talked to you, but I didn't know what to say. And literally, like, the only people that I could talk to at that point were people that were living in the world. They were the only ones that embraced me, right? It was like all of my church friends, they all ran. Nobody knew what to say, right? So, yeah, it was quite.
Yeah, and I know you also said about the Lord telling you that you were going to go through a Job experience.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was after me and him had split up for a while. I was, because I kept trying to come back to God, and it's just, like when you hold on to bitterness and anger, it's hard to get back. It's hard to get back to that intimate place with him when you're holding on to that pain. So, and that's what it was. I was trying to, and then I remember praying, and God told me, he said, I was reading through Job, and God spoke to me, says, you're going to have 7 years of Job experience. And I was laughing, going, no, that's not right.
It's funny.
This can't be God.
No way, not me.
Yeah, I'm like, no, that can't be God. God would never do that, right? But he said, you're going to go through 7 years, except for your children. I will not take your children. And I was like, okay, so I'm trying to reason with God. I'm like, okay, God, you can take this, but you can't have that. Like you're like, I'm negotiating with God, right? Like, come on. We know who's going to win on this one, right? So so it was 7 year. One by one, I lost my house. I lost everything, one by one. But through it all, he was, even when I turned from him, and when I turned from him and I was running around, I started drinking, I was going to parties, I was just acting like, I'd never even acted like that when I was a teenager.
Just being rebellious,
and it was just, God was just, in those quiet moments, he would still let me know he was there. Even though I had turned from him, I had run from him, he still just kept letting me know, I'm still there, Tina. I'm still there, so.
And that drew you back.
Yeah, eventually, It was actually through my daughter. It was my daughter that said, she came to me. I mean, God knows what's going to get us. He knows what our heart is. He knows what's going to bring us back. And my daughter, she was going through, she has quite the testimony herself, and I was just like, God, you got to do something with her. And I was just crying out to God, right? Even though me, myself, I was out living in the world, fully in the world, just, not living right. And then I was like, God, my daughter, and I was just, as a mom, you're crying out for your child. And I remember my daughter came to me and she said, Mom, I want to go back to church. And I'm like, that's good, you should. Like, you should.
Wow.
And then she's like, no, Mom, you have to come with me. I won't go back if you don't come with me. And I was like, as a mom, how can you say no? How can you say no, right? And then that's when I came back. That's when my daughter.
I know, when we were at church and also at the Bible study, you said you do art, right?
Yeah.
Art is your passion? Or?
Yeah.
And I know at that time that's one of your dreams to do, I guess, something in the art field, and you had set it aside because of what was going on.
Yeah.
And it was at that time during that sermon, we started talking about dreams, and that reignited the passion for art. So you want to tell us about that as well?
Yeah, well, like with that one sermon when they were talking about dreams and stuff, and sometimes like our dreams, like they seem like they die, right? But then God always remembers. God knows who remembers, right? And I always had a passion for art, drawing, just creating. I just love to create, right? And then like you said, like with all that stuff going on, it's kind of like it goes to the wayside.
Yeah.
And then just recent, I'd say, I started getting, probably the last 6-7 years, I started getting more serious about my art. But it's more like it was like a training. Like God was trying to get my skills, because there's skills that's that come to drawing. There's skill level that comes to painting and learning how the brush works and how everything works. It's like anything, like driving a car. First day you get into a car, it's like one way, but then after so many years, you're like maneuvering it, right? And that's the same thing. Like I was going through a little bit of a process on how to, and then I was just, you know, and the closer and the more deeper intimacy I have with God, the more he shows me. And now it was basically, I was at one service in church, and God said to me, Tina, will you, because at this point I was doing art shows like in North Van and different places with my, I was painting oil landscapes and stuff. So I was getting different shows and stuff like that. And then God said, Tina, will you give me everything? Because art's such a very personal, passionate part for me. And he's like, will you give it to me? And I just started crying. And I said, God, I will give everything to you. Kind of like Isaac when Abraham, you know, with Isaac.
The
sacrifice. And then God says, will you give me your art? And I cried and I wept, and because I was like, at this point, I felt like that's all I had left. I'd lost everything. I didn't have a home. I didn't, you know, like just everything was gone. I had my art. That's what kept me going. Because I had lost my health. Yeah, because I had, sorry,
yeah, it's okay.
Because I had lost my health at this point too. And I've never been sick basically my entire life. The only time I was sick was when I was really little. So I got really sick. And the art was what kept me going and I kept pushing and painting, and it kept me sane. Because my doctors were telling me you're crazy or this or that, you know. And I was like, no. So I just kept with my art, and I was like, okay, God. And then God's like, will you give me your art? And then I was like, okay. So I closed my eyes. I said, God, I give it all to you. And it was like I saw me grabbing my easel and my canvases, and I just threw it at his feet. And when I threw it at his feet, I saw it turn into oil on his feet. And because God speaks to me a lot, like it's so funny because people say, how do you know it's God? It's like God gives me pictures, and like I'll see pictures or I'll see things, and I don't understand like what is that. So I know I ate meat, you know. You always know when something's God and when something's just like
it witnesses in your spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
It testifies.
Yeah. So and then when I just went I just gave it to him. And he's just been taking me on this journey of if I give it to him, he'll do it. You know, and that's where the art comes more now.
Yeah, I know you call it prophetic art, right?
Yeah, well, prophetic and inspired, God-inspired art, you know, so.
Yeah, so Tina here has one of her masterpieces here that she drew that was inspired by God, by the Holy Spirit. I'm going to have her to share exactly how this painting came about and the revelation that God gave her through this painting.
Okay. Yeah.
Describe to us.
Yeah. Well, basically, with this piece, what happened was it was during praise and worship. And I was just, you know, when you got that time, I mean, I love praise and worship. I'm one of those, I just love to get into you're just like, it's just you and God in the presence, right? That's why I love it when you get music ministers that just pour into it, because you just get taken to that place, right? And I was just at this place with Christ, just like, it was just so beautiful. And then I saw this painting, like, and I mean, obviously not exactly what I saw, but you know, as close as I could get it. So, and then it was just, so in this painting, you know, because you know, you always get people talking about, with being a Christian, life is going to be so great, everything's wonderful, God creates a table for us before our enemies, and we're all like, yes, Jesus, everything's going to be perfect. No, I'm going to be like,
stress-free.
Yeah, I'm going to dance through the fields with the tulips, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, I thought that too.
We always think that, you know.
They didn't give me the other side of it.
And then, yeah, exactly, you know. And then so I was seeing this picture, and then it was like, you know, I remember hearing someone say, you know, everyone wants to follow Jesus until they find out it leads to the cross. You know, like he had to go to the cross, you know, for us to have and get what we have, what he's done for us, right? And so in here you can just kind of see the crown of thorns, and then there's like blood on the crown of thorns, and you can see it dripping as it's hanging on the cross. You can see it dripping into the communion cup, and in the communion cup, as the blood drips, the splash turns into a crown, like a golden crown. It's actually got 23 karat gold in there. It's got a golden crown, you know, and like he traded, like, because he wore that crown of thorns, we can partake in that crown, the golden crown, right? And then down here with the bread, you can see the cat of nine tails, whatever that weapon is called. It's like blends into the bread, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, you know, because he says, drink my blood, eat my flesh, right? You know, it's like the communion table, you know. And then down there you see the purple robe, right? And that talks about, you know, when the Roman soldiers were there, his body was beaten. It was just ripped apart. They said in the Bible, couldn't tell if it was
his face was not.
Yeah, like he was just ripped apart. And they took this robe, they stripped him naked. You know, like so many times, I can remember one time I heard someone was saying, you know, like you get people who've gone through sexual abuse and stuff like that, the humiliation and the shame. And here God was standing tortured and stripped naked in front of the very creation, in front of his very creation. Like he gave them breath. The ones that were beating him, that were hitting him, they were spitting in his face, they put this robe on him, he gave them breath, and they still did this, like the shame, you know, ripping it off, you know. And yeah, and it's just like I said, you know, when we first become a Christian, we think, oh, everything's great, because so many churches go, oh, it's great.
Yeah, it's
you know, they're always talking about, oh, Jesus came to give you life and life more abundantly. Yeah, and we're like, yeah, that's awesome. I'll sign up for that.
All day.
But then we always forget that there's a price. There's a price for everything, you know, like, and it's like, and it's so funny because sometimes we think, like, why do we go through certain things? And it's like, for God to give us the best, he's got to get that yuckiness out of us, like the things that we've gone through, the pain, the hurt, the shame, you know. And like through this painting, God just showed me that, you know, no matter what's gone on in our life, no matter what we've done, no matter what's been done to us, you take that you have and you put it on that table. Because Paul says, I only boast in my weakness. Yes. And I boast in the Lord. You know, that's all we have. That's all we have to give him is our weakness. We just take those weaknesses, we take the pain, we take the hurt, we take the anger, just everything, addictions, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You take that and you put it, and you know, because it's like, if you take away any of those painful elements he had to go through, all you're left with is a cup and some bread.
And that's man-made.
Exactly, you know, but it's like everything, like he takes the pain, he takes everything that we go through as people, and he turns it into a beautiful feast, you know. And then I just tell people, like, you know, like, and when people ask, you know, like, don't hide your testimony. I used to be so ashamed of what I've done, of what I've gone through, you know, but then it's like, but if I tell people, there's other people who've gone through it, and they need to know there's hope in Christ. Christ will take that and he will give you life, and life more abundantly. You know, but sometimes we sit there, I think a lot of times in our Western world, we think, oh, okay, that means like a, you know, you can go to the casino, put a couple quarters in, you know, that's not.
You know, he said that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. Yeah. And he has indeed given you beauty for ashes. Yeah. You know, and God is just so good. It's amazing to see how, because there are millions of people in the world, and there are millions of people who have testimonies and beauty stories, you know, and oftentimes, like you said, and I've experienced it as well, and we all have been victims of it, where we believe that it's just a shame of what we went through, and feeling as though that we're the only one who went through it. You know, but really, it's just the enemy keeping you from being that victor story to set that other person out of bondage. And that's what it is, because he's the accuser of the brethren. He's the one that's bringing the shame. He's the one that's bringing the condemnation. In fact, God says he wants to give us life, and life more abundantly. And so, Tina, you know, I'm really thankful that Tina came all the way out here, to share this beautiful story. I had to share this story because the Lord just wants this story to be shared with other people for them to be encouraged.
Amen.
But Tina, do you have any other words of encouragement for a divorcee or someone that may be going through a really hard time and needs a word of hope, encouragement to know that God is still there and He will definitely leave the 99 and to come and find them, and that they are not alone?
Yeah. Well, I guess my best advice is what I've truly learned is it doesn't matter how broken you feel. It doesn't matter how lost you feel, how worthless you feel, or how discarded you feel.
Mm-hmm.
God is always there. And God, like in this picture, like He understands everything. He understands. I mean, this is the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings. He came from heaven down to earth. He knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
He knew what they were going to do to him, and He still came. And He still came because He loves us and because He loves to restore. Like so many times what's in the last few months, like I keep hearing that story and people keep saying, like Joseph. He was in prison, right? He was in prison. Like he was just, so many things happened to him that weren't his fault.
Yeah.
And so many people who've gone through abuse, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Why you've been abused or you're being beaten or whatever's going on. But you stay with God and just God will redeem you. God will redeem the story because Joseph, every day, it's not changing. His view ain't changing. And one day he went from the prison to the palace in one day. That's all it takes is one day with God, prison to the palace, And that's just what I tell people, just keep holding on and just keep holding on. Just seek Him. Because no matter what, He's our strong tower. He's the one that we turn to for refuge, and that's stuff.
So thank you, Tina, for coming out here. Yes, remember, one day, your day is going to go from pit to palace. And I just want to pray over my viewers here right now. If you're going through anything, I just want to declare that God will bring you into freedom. I pray that God's strength will strengthen you. I pray, God, that life would begin to rise up into you. I pray that the burden will be lifted up. He said to cast all of your cares upon Him because He cares for you. And we just thank you right now, Father, for what you're doing into their lives. Thank you, Father God, for just being their King, being their Lord. Father, you said that we do not have a high priest that does not identify with our suffering because He went to the cross for us. And so you have someone that can identify with your brokenness, with your rejection, with whatever you're going through. You have a God that is above, that sees the little fine hairs on your head. And so I declare that you will have joy. I declare that you will have peace. And I declare that you will have the strength of an eagle to go through your circumstances. And guys, I also want to share that I will be bringing people here occasionally to just interview them and for them to share their testimony. We don't know, like I've said in the beginning, what testimony is out there and who it may bless, but we're just gonna go out there, throw our fishing line out, and the Lord will bring the fish, and we're trusting Him to do that. So we'll see you soon.